right, everybody, we're back from Zen Perry Project and with Dave W. of White Hills. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks for being here. It's the
Yeah,
holiday season, and thanks for taking the time to actually do this. And I'm glad we actually found a time where it worked out.
yeah, sure, no problem. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course. How has it been for you? How have you been? How's the band going? What have you been up to lately?
The what have we been up to? What aren't we up to? I guess is
Yeah,
more
you
like
guys are prolific. That's for sure.
um we just this past Friday finished mastering the next what's the next record.
Whoa.
Yeah. Um so that's like the big thing. That was the big thing on the plate that is now off the plate. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah,
How long was that process? Tell me about that.
oh well, it actually the uh, it's a long, we took a long time to do this one.
Okay.
So kind of at the beginning of 2023, we we were about to do a bunch of touring. We had been in the process of writing some new stuff, and the stuff really wasn't fully formed, but we were liking the way things were sounding for the most part with stuff. So we wanted to catch the energy of the songs right at that time before we were going to be basically 6 months playing similar sets every night and not playing any of this new music. So we were like, okay, we got to catch this now because we come back, it's going to be a ramp up and who knows what's going to happen to the songs then. So we went into Martin BC's studio, recorded about 8 songs. Um, and then basically didn't work on it until we were in between tours. And so the album had it was strange. We worked on it in a way that we normally don't work on it. We usually go and do a record and it's like you're focused on the record, you do it, boom, it's done. This like basically we worked on it on and off over a year, basically.
Yeah, and it kind of gave time to gestate as well because
Yeah,
and
a little bit. I mean, I don't like to do that personally too much. So, it was good to work on it in chunks and then come back to it and completely having forgotten what I had done to it and looking at it as kind of like a new thing unto itself at that moment.
what's a usual recording you said you kind of just go in the studio and do it, but what does a usual recording process look like for you compared to this? And what did you like or what didn't you like about it? And what sort of changed for you?
Well, we spent more time on this.
Yeah.
Okay, just okay, one, that was a big thing because I didn't have to maybe sacrifice something due to a short time span to do something. Okay, so that was good about it. But I mean, basically every aspect of the record is kind of the same that we've done every record. We go into a studio, as the band, we lay down basic tracks and then, vocals, whatever little overdubs that we do, we try not to mess with things too much. Um, and then, you're done. But this one, because a lot of the stuff, like there's this one song on the record called Fiend. Okay. And this is an example of like what was really different about this recording session. Fiend was just a bass line and a drum line. And I really liked the drum line. I wasn't necessarily so set on the bass line that I put to it originally, but it was just like I was just like, this is good enough. It's a placeholder. It's good enough for us to be able to track it. So we tracked it. Now, the song that you hear now has a completely different bass line than the song of how we wrote the song. Okay.
Okay.
So we basically rewrote the song as we worked on it. And it was the last song to come together on the record. I really wanted it on the record. There was just something about it that I liked. It was different, and I'm glad it ended up on the record. And we were listening to it the other day, and Ego was like, I think Fiend is gonna be the slow burner for this one. She's all like, it might be the one that, people like the most.
Wow. And that's big because you've been collaborating with Ego for since the start, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And that's yeah, Ego Sensations for people listening out there. And Ego plays drums in your live because me and Michael, the producer, got to see you guys at Desert Fest, which was
Yeah.
you guys blew us and everybody else away. That was a great
That was
set.
a fun show. That was a fun show.
That was a great time. And so that just working with her and understanding what it means to kind of be in this band and this process, that must be like a really cool feeling. So what do you think kind of made were you intentionally trying to do this with this album? Did you know you were going to take like all year to do it, or did you just
Um,
you had to go touring and then you just weren't it wasn't done yet?
yeah, it was like Ego would bug me in between tours when we would get home. She would be like, "So where are you at? What's going on with it? Are you done?
Yeah,
Like, what are you doing?" And like, "No, not done. Not done. Not done."
and your music is very, I mean, for lack of a better term, is very trippy, cerebral, very like involved musically. So I would imagine in my head, I actually haven't thought about this that much. Do you guys go in for like a kind of a live tracking sort of situation, or do you just go in with like bits and pieces and quickly build in the studio typically? What kind of
I
gives this ethereal nature of your music?
know. Well, because we're weird people. I mean, it's like I'm a very no, guttural's not the right word. Uh Immediate. I'm a very immediate person. I don't like to, especially when it comes to music, I think that you can lose something if you take too long and overthink things. Okay. So, I don't necessarily care about messing up. Okay. I don't go when I play solos, I don't have like a thought out solo that I play. I just play. It's all cerebral and it's all like from the heart. So we always just go in and just play. We'll have like a basis of a set of songs. Sometimes, some songs are better together than others. Sometimes they aren't. But like, especially with this one, it was like we just didn't care necessarily, like if we messed up. And then we used whatever mess ups that we felt each of us made and took it as a way and accentuated it in the mix in order for it to be like an integral part of the song versus something that isn't. So it was, it's just in and bash.
Yeah. I talk about this decently on the like, at length in the podcast other times, but the idea of like wu or like the Buddhist philosophy of like you have everything, as good as you can get it and finding that moment of the mess up or something that is truly like your nature coming through. That is
Yeah.
like the most beautiful thing about it. So
Yeah, yeah, have you ever read that Brian Eno's book, A Year in a Life, I think is what it's called?
no.
Okay, so it's like Eno had a book deal. He had to write a book. He didn't know what he was going to write his book about, but he kept a diary. He was an avid, every day, everything he did. So then his publisher said to him, "Well, why don't you just put together a year of your life from your diaries?" Okay, so in this book, he goes about all the different records that he's working on at the time, and he's doing a David Bowie record at the time. I think it was Earthling that they were doing, but he's talking about this moment in the studio with David, and there was a mess up, and like he said that was saying that that's always been the hardest part of my job of working with David is David like embraces the mess up and I can't. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, um, after like reading that, I started to listen to a lot of Bowie records that they did together on headphones. You can hear mess ups all over the place. On actually almost all of his records, you can hear unbelievable mess ups. But if that mess up wasn't in the song, it wouldn't be that song wouldn't be what it is.
He was
You know?
truly punk rock, about it.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that goes for, well, for Brian Eno as well. I think what he was going was so calculated, and his style, it's like almost like the mess ups. He was really had such a focused goal that he was like trying to accomplish with, his use of synths and all that stuff. So yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense why they would also work together and do well together.
yeah, 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 exactly.
That's really cool. Yeah, I just finished Rick Rubin's book, so I'm looking for
Yeah, I
other.
want to read that one.
It's great. It's highly recommended. I was just talking to about it yesterday, but he comes off as preachy sometimes when I see interviews of him, but I mean, if there anybody has the right to be, it's that dude. But it's a great like read if you just want to like pull it open and just like random page and you just like get a little like insight.
Yeah, you can think whatever you want about anybody, but the fact is that guy's made some amazing records.
In every single genre, and he's just well renowned as just a good dude
Yeah, yeah,
and a positive force in the music and art world.
yeah.
Um, so I mean, I have to ask because I'm a drummer myself. How did you? Because um, Ego was not always the drummer.
Yeah, correct. But we played in bands before where she was a drummer.
Gotcha. Okay, and also she plays standing up.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
sick, and she
Yeah, yeah.
killed
Well,
it.
I mean, when we first started to do it, um, we were actually talking about this the other day. It was kind of ballsy what we did, right? Okay, so
Still is.
we, yeah, we had a drummer, really good friend of ours, died. And then he died right before a tour, and then we had to get someone real quick. So we got someone for that tour. That tour was a nightmare. And then we had another tour after that, had to get another person. That tour was better, but it was still um it wasn't right. And we had been talking about Ego coming onto drums and figuring out a way of us to be able to do things where we didn't have to rely on finding someone who could, one, take time to go and tour, who has toured, who understands what it's all about, and is, not going to be a detriment to you while you have spent a lot of money to be on airplanes and you're renting a lot of gear and you are paying people. So we just decided that it was time to just try it as a duo. And then we literally had a tour with Black Mountain right after we decided to do this. And that was the first time we went out as the two of us. We had no idea what we were doing. None whatsoever, trying to figure out exactly what we were doing. Half the time, like Ego was playing her bass, we were doing some more ambient kind of stuff, and then she would go over to the drums. It was just a weird mix of things. And then shortly after that, we did a tour with UFO Mammut, who's a band from Italy, who was coming over to the US. And we did this tour with them. And on that tour, she played sitting down. Okay.
Okay.
And then we went over to the UK and did a tour with our buddies Nod, and she was sitting down on that tour as well. But then after that tour, she's all like, I want to stand.
It
And
just
so she just figured out how she could do it. She's all like, I'm going to do this. And she just figured it out, you
Yeah, and
know?
she gets some killer drum fills in there as well. It's not an inhibitor on
Yeah.
her part. I think since watching her do that, and at that show, I was like, I tried doing that a few times just because it's a more or less a standard kit. Because there are like cocktail kits that are kind of more typically like South American that are kind of meant for that. But she's playing a pretty regular drum set.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a regular snare, regular tom, regular floor tom. You know, it's just the kick. It's hitting a trigger. And
So you
then
just by necessity, it worked out.
yeah, yeah, it worked out. And then, we were able to feel like with her standing up as well, that both of us were able to give more of the show we wanted to give, you know? So very strange going out there first and being like the only person who has the ability to move, you know?
Yes.
So, and the music is so frantic. It would look strange if you're just standing there, you know? So,
It's fair enough.
yeah.
Dave, where did let's go back. How did you get into music? How did this all start for you? Where did you grow up? What's your origin story?
Uh, Born in Westchester, New York. Moved to California as was it like 4 years old? Um, my earliest memories are like memories of like when we first moved to California and like not being in school yet. My older brother was in school, and being around the house with my mom, who always had music on. And, she would just do what she would do, and I would look at her like with the stereo, changing the records. I got really enthralled with records and holding these things, looking at them, and then putting this thing on, and sound comes out of it. Um, my parents, my mom was, like Roberta Flack, Carole King, Bette Midler, Neil Diamond kinds of things. And my dad was more of a big band guy, but they had like some oddball records in there. Like they had Jefferson Airplane's Bark, Jimi Hendrix's Band of Gypsies, and Woodstock. So those were the weirdest looking records. So I always gravitated to those. And yeah, like I say that Jefferson Airplane is the reason why I play the guitar and why I do music. That album Bark blew my mind as like a 4 or 5 year old kid, and I still listen to it to this day. I think it's one of the most amazing records ever made.
Well,
Um, yeah.
do you think
And
did your parents ever like listen to those albums, or did they?
no, it was like I always thought that my dad was, or I mean, I always thought that it was my mom was the one who had got those records because I always thought of my dad as being more like stiff.
Mhm.
Uh, but actually, like since my dad's passed and talking to my mom about it, she's like, "Oh no, your dad, he bought those records. He was the one that always like, would try something new." And I said, "Wow, So, um,
Love to hear it. It's cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that was my first moments of music. And then, my parents realized that I liked music. So at an early age, they would buy me records, or my own little radio or, just whatever. And then junior high comes along and I wanted to play the drums. And they thought that the drums would be really loud. So they said, how about the trumpet? So I reluctantly went for the trumpet with them not realizing what a trumpet sounds like with so
Also
much.
very loud.
Yeah, and very loud, and not realizing that if you let me do drums, all it would be was the drum pad, It's not like I'd have a drum set. But then by the time I was 13, I was all like I told them I wanted a guitar for my birthday, and they got me a guitar and lessons. Then I did lessons for maybe about 6 months, and then I ditched it and I taught myself how to play by just putting a record on the turntable and figuring it out.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What were your first like writings or bands, or what kind of got you in the creative zone for music?
Uh, I just it just looked like a good time. I
Okay.
just want to have a good time. So it's like, it's funny, right? You read these like bios and stuff about, people talking about why'd you get into music? Oh, I wasn't that good with the chicks, but blah blah. I see the musicians get chicks, so I'll be a musician, right? That's not why I started to do it. I did it just because I wanted to have a good time. It seemed like a good time. Everything about it, cool, it's fashionable, people doing cool things. You're just out, you're at clubs, you're seeing shows, you know. I mean, I've been seeing shows since I've been 5 years old. My parents understanding that I like music, like took me, to see music. Um, so I just wanted to have that good time. And that's it, really, you know. And then that turned into well, you want to be on stage. That's what you see.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to have, be with a group of people that I liked. And to me, there's nothing better than walking into a room with a group of people, whether you've played with them a billion times or you've never played with them before, and just like some kind of magic that can happen in that room. To me, that is my peak moment, right? So I just try to achieve that peak moment anytime I have a guitar on me. And that's when I feel most alive.
What was your first time on stage? What was your first do you I
First
like to
time on
ask you all this.
stage
What was your
at
first band name?
13. 13, the band was called Paper Bag. And I sung. Um, Everyone else in the band was like my brother's age. They're like 16, 17. And we played at the first show we ever did was at the Tivoli. It was a movie theater, um, downtown San Carlos, which is San Carlos is a suburb of San Francisco. Um, yeah, the Tivoli. And we played, in between some like Frankenstein films or something. It was on Halloween night. Um, and it was crazy.
That's so appropriate for you, I
Yeah.
have to say.
Yeah, and then that band played only one other show, and that was at it was a house party um at this guy John Bartlett. And John Bartlett is one of the guitar players in the Phantom Surfers.
Sick.
Okay, so I don't know if you know who that band is, but they're like a 90s surf band. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, we played at this house party, and then that was it.
And you were hooked at this point, or did
Oh
just
yeah, of course. Are you kidding? I was a 13-year-old kid. I was like fucking into punk rock,
yeah.
and I just like wanted to be Iggy Pop. And so it was like I dressed like the way you've seen those pictures of Iggy where he's just in like Levi's jeans and he has like red knee pads on and no shirt, right? So like that's how I dressed. I was just like, I'm gonna be Iggy Pop. And I was just crazy, this crazy little kid. I'd jump up in the air, like land on my knees, roll around, spit on people, you know.
Hell
I
yeah.
mean, I saw Iggy Pop the first year, the first time I ever saw Iggy Pop was that same year. I was 13 years old. And yeah, that show blew my mind. And that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be Iggy Pop.
You just had that direction after that. You're like, there's something to go for. There's
There
a
you go. You're just an impressionable little kid that
Yeah,
want
and you
that
had this
we,
maniac on stage. Yeah.
yeah. But the other thing is, it's like there's something powerful to be on stage and either to watch it or actually to be the person on stage
Mhm.
and command a presence, right? Where all eyes are just like zoomed in, and Iggy, that show, that time I saw Iggy Pop, it was transfixing. It was otherworldly, and I had no idea just being this like 13-year-old kid. like what I was privy to, how lucky I was actually to be in the venue because it was a bar, you know, um, 21 and over. But fortunately, at that time in San Francisco, the clubs didn't necessarily care.
Yeah, as long as it looked cool.
Yeah. And yeah, so I was just like, and then once you do it, right? So you see that and you're all like, oh my God, I want all those eyes like locked on me. It's like, I want people to look at me. I want to be the one that is commanding this. Um, then when you do it and you have that, you're just like, oh man, it's a drug.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
What were you like outside of music at this point? So, I mean, things started changing for you. I'm assuming you started heading pretty heavily into music at this point. What kind
yeah,
of kid were you? Were you getting in trouble or good
yeah,
student?
I was a quiet, no, I was the kid that always like did the things that never got caught for it.
Hell yeah.
And like the times that I did get caught, I was really lucky and had some reasoning that allowed me to get off, you know? So, you know, I was lucky in that way. I was a quiet kid, you know?
This was like truly your outlet. Just
Yeah. But that paper bag thing, so that was like 13, right? Two shows is crazy. And then my older brother just started to be a jackass and I just didn't want to be around him anymore. And in the context of this band, obviously I had to be around him because we lived together. But so I left that band. And then God, let's think about this. And maybe it wasn't, I'd play with people, I'd be in bands, but didn't necessarily play out much, maybe just parties, but nothing that big, nothing that crazy, just different kinds of stuff. Um, and then like when I was 20, um, I took a year off of college and like left. And went with a friend of mine who was in a similar situation and we just bailed. We bailed on America and we just like found some work and
where'd you go?
we went all over the place. I mean, we were in Europe, we were in the Middle East, um,
Whoa.
you know, and so we had met some people who were like, you can work. There are these places that you could go in Israel and work. And uh, you get food, you get a place to live, and they give you money, right? So this friend and I, when we found out about this, we were like, yeah, we could use this someplace. So we went over, and there was this whole group of international people, from all over Europe that would come and would volunteer on these kibbutz. And so we ended up doing this for like 6 months. Um, and there were people that played music. And so we kind of started this band, but it was really just us playing for the people who were around in the area. We were up in the mountains, like around nothing. And then as I was doing that more and more, I was all like, this is all I want to do. I just want to play guitar. I want to play guitar. I want to be in a band. I want to play shows. I want to tour. I want to make records. And that's basically where it really started. And then once that popped into my head, I immediately left and I came back home. Um, and I moved into, started to go back to college in San Francisco, got an apartment in San Francisco, and all of my energy was just finding people to play with.
Hmm.
So the first band that I played in San Francisco was called Uncle Wiggly. Horrible band. I didn't write any of the songs, but it was to be honest with you, I don't even remember the guy who was the leader of the band who wrote all the songs. I don't even remember his name. Isn't that horrible?
Probably tried to black that out, yeah.
No, he was a nice guy, super nice guy, but just he and I, as far as like music, were on two different planes, right? Like it was at this one rehearsal, one of the early rehearsals, and he hired me as like a lead guitar player. So I'm, jamming to the song, and then he stops the song and he says, "Can you do something more like Jimmy Buffett?"
Oof.
And to be honest with you, I had no idea who Jimmy Buffett was. I seriously no idea. If I had heard Margaritaville up until that point, it was tuned out. I was just like I said, I have no reference point for you, you know. Um, but anyways, that band played some shows. Actually, one of the shows we played was the one of the first Mr. Bungle shows that was ever played.
Sick.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And then from that, the guy who drummed in that band, his name was Peregrine. Okay. He and I then left that band and he and I started playing together. Okay. At that time, I was really into free jazz, and so was he. And our sole purpose was trying to um, make free jazz rock, basically. Not anything that resembled jazz, but only in the concept of what music being free is.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was great. He and I did this for a long time. That band slowly morphed into a band called Freak Show Hoedown, which became the first band that I was in that toured and put out a record, um, and did all that.
So this
And
is like
that,
your early 20s for you.
yeah, yeah. And then that morphed into a billion other bands. There was a point in time where I lived in this house in San Francisco where half the members were in Freak Show Hoedown and half the members were in this band called Mountain Pig. And then um, both of the bands kind of broke up at the same time. And we decided to just take the two bands and put them together into one band. So that band was like two power trios in one.
Sick.
Okay. It was a mayhem. Okay. And we made an ungodly racket, you know, to say the least. Do you know who Michael Ferrante is?
Rings a
Uh,
bell, but no.
he's the guy behind that project Spearhead.
Mm, mm,
He
no.
had a rap band in the 90s called Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy. And then goes back to like the early punk days in San Francisco with this band called the Beatniks. Super great guy. Um, really interesting person. And Spearhead used to practice across the hall from us. And there was this one day when the practice we were doing, we literally just got in there, plugged in, and started jamming and didn't stop for 40 minutes. And then at the end of it, doors banging, and it's Michael Ferrante. He's all like, "What the fuck is that?" He goes, "Man, you guys are fucking sick." Right? So,
Oh yeah.
you know, uh, that was this band Oats, but there was all these other bands that we had at the time, because we all lived in this house together. We would play music constantly. So there were these three of the guys in Oats, two other guys besides me were named Dave. So we had this band Trace Daybase. Okay. And then there was the Milo Guasden trio, Cleats, um, Schlitz and Shazbot, Fetus Tree, and there was this venue on Haight Street at that time that was like about 4 blocks from where we lived. Um, and it was called the Night Break. And that was like our living room. So if someone backed out on a night, more often than not, the booker knew that they could call us up and that there would be someone that could come up and play a show. And so that's like where I really cut my teeth on stage was at this time, playing in San Francisco all the time, anytime, as much as I could. And then, yeah, in the late 90s, that whole scene just kind of fell apart. The .com thing took over.
Okay.
Ego was out in San Francisco at the same time playing in bands. And then all of her stuff started to crumble. And then she's all like, I'm thinking about going to New York and playing music. You want to come? And I said, sounds good to me, you know?
Yeah, you just
So,
wanted to keep it going.
yeah, exactly. And it's the best thing that ever happened.
Hell yeah. Why do you think that 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 music crumbled? Or like those bands started to, I mean, you mentioned .com,
People
but
grow up,
uh,
I mean, it's like you're a lifer or you aren't.
yeah,
And, you know, uh, the majority of the people that I was involved with in the scene where I was, people get married, people start families or whatever. Or people just like, I've been busting my ass at this and, for so long, I'm sick and tired, you know.
then they just get over it.
Yeah, they just stop. So
And you never really got jaded like that, or was there like a goal that you were trying to hit in your mind, or you just wanted to keep on playing music? That was the goal.
I mean, I've reached the goal, you know. I play music, I put records out, people buy my records, we get asked to do amazing shows. Um, I mean, I'm doing
Absolutely.
everything that I ever wanted to do. It's not like I wanted to do anything else, and anytime like like when I got out of college, you have this idea, oh, you got to get this job, you got to like use this degree that you have in some way and get a good paying job, get secure, right? These ladders that you go. So I was like, well, I want to play music really. And so I need to learn about the music industry. So I went out and I worked at record companies.
Okay.
Uh, I worked at three different record companies. And by the time I got to the last job that I had, I was like, this is actually taking me further away from playing music than any like perceived stability it gives me as far as having a job. So at a certain point, I was just like, well, screw it. If you're going to do this, you got to do it 100%.
Yeah.
And that's what
I
moved
think there's
me on.
that book that was it The Artist's Way. It talks about people when they're trying to do something creative, they end up getting a job that's like just next to the thing that they want to do, and therefore it makes it so they can't ever do that. They can't bridge that small gap.
Yeah, it's like everyone's taught the American ruse, growing up, right? So it's like you either uh, you know, do the
Yeah.
party line or you say, screw it, I'm going to figure this out on my own terms.
What did you kind of learn at those record companies? And
Well,
anything of value?
everything that I mean, the music industry was so different then than it is now. Um, and I was doing PR. And so everything that I did PR wise is completely different now. So I can't even begin to say like what a PR person does. Like, but at that time, it was an inventive time, right? So, uh, and it was a time where there were artists in money, right? So record companies would do these cool promotional things, and we would design these great like PR campaigns around some kind of a weird product that was also involved with the band and all that kind of stuff. So that I learned a lot from, um, and I also saw at a time what it was like to actually have a company put money behind someone and have a marketing campaign, you know?
Yeah, and that was probably not something you ever really dealt with was money and the music industry at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever.
Yeah. What I mean, what is your sort of philosophy on music and kind of the esoteric nature of like what makes an artist? What do you see as like what do you think makes a good musician?
Um, Having no skill at the instrument you're playing. Well, a balance, I guess you'd have to say a balance. At some point you're going to have some kind of understanding, but retaining uh, um, a sense of what it was like when you first picked up the instrument, I think is like huge, right? I
The thing that
think,
made you excited about it in the first place.
yeah, or just, there's something when you're writing your first songs, you don't think too much. You can overanalyze. I mean, it's just music. It's just music, you
Yeah.
know? You don't need to overanalyze it too much. There's only so much you can do within whatever chord structure and everything. So it's like, I mean, just get over it. Uh,
Just do
in a
it.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I think, I mean, I think it's really important not to worry about uh, what someone else thinks, you
Do
know?
you ever do you ever sort of deal with that as an issue? Or was your family, I don't know, were they involved or did they know what you were up to on Hate Street, and
Of
did
course.
they care? Yeah.
Yeah, my parents would come and see the band.
Hell yeah.
My mom still comes. So when, if we're playing in San Francisco, she's there.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I didn't have like, I wouldn't say they like pushed me to do it, nor were they ever saying don't do it. Um,
They just let you do your thing.
uh, you know, I want you to go back to the question though, because I had a train of thought and I lost it.
Okay.
So, just in regard to, so you're asking like, what makes an artist just in general?
No, well, I mean, the last thing is like what pushed you to do it, or like what was your philosophy on it? What is your philosophy on just making music and bringing this to people? Like, because at this point, so I guess I'm trying to
Oh,
bridge to the next gap, which is
okay. Okay.
what gets you into White Hills? Like,
Okay.
when did you start writing your own music?
Okay. So, to me, musicians were artists. Always like, how I've always looked at it. I've always looked at it as art, whether the music's commercial or not commercial. Like if someone is good at what they do, they are an artist. In the same way that a sculptor is an artist, in the same way a filmmaker is an artist, someone who writes, whatever, you are driven to do something and you want your voice to be heard. Okay. So, and you do it in a way that is unique, that is part of this art you create. So I view myself as an artist. Uh, Everything about everything I ever done in White Hills is uh, a packaged deal, so to speak. The artwork is a certain way and it relates to the music on the record. There's usually a theme to the records. Um, like the record we just finished. I think
Which, by the way, what is the name of it?
it's called Beyond This Fiction.
All right.
Okay. And It's the first time I've ever listened to my own music and got chills from it.
Sick.
Okay. And I think this is the best record that we've ever made. And I've never said that about any other record. I feel so strongly about this record, and the message it has. And so, yeah,
Hell yeah.
out art. I'm an artiste.
Everything you do is in service of that. I mean, I just read a Hunter S. Thompson quote, and basically it's just like he's like, don't have goals, but just find what you want to do every day and try to just keep on doing that
Yeah,
because it's multifaceted, and I think that's where you really create who you are, and you find your own personality. And with the music,
yeah,
so you moved to New York with Ego.
yeah.
What was next? How because you hadn't been living in New York since you were
Okay,
what,
yeah,
three?
yeah. So when I was in San Francisco, that band where it was the two bands that came together to form one band. Um, there's this guy who came up to us after a show one night. His name is Peter Crowley. And Peter Crowley is the guy who booked Max's Kansas City. And he introduced himself. Hi, I'm Peter Crowley. Your band is amazing, and that's a curse. And I was all like, what do you mean that's a curse? He goes, every band I've ever loved went nowhere. Okay. And so then, slowly find out who he is, his history of booking Max's Kansas City and New York City. And then him saying, I'm working with this no wave artist, Von Elmo. And I just put out a record. He's coming to California to do a West Coast tour. I want you to be his backing band. So he gave us the CD. We listened to it, and we were just like, hell yeah, this is going to be amazing. So we went and we did these shows with Vaughn. Unbelievable. And Vaughn wanted us to move to New York right at that time. He's all like, you guys are the best band I've had since the Von Elmo band. But that didn't happen. Jump forward. I'm in New York. Peter Crowley's back living in New York. I call up Peter and I say, hey, is Vaughn playing? Does Vaughn need someone, either a guitar player or a bass player? So Peter's all like, yeah, Vaughn would love to play with you. So the first stuff I did was with Vaughn Elmo. Um, yeah, I was had this great Vaughn. It's a crazy character. Look him up on YouTube. You can find out a whole bunch of stuff about him. Guy's a nutbag. Um, the first rehearsal I did with Vaughn was me, Vaughn, and James Chance from the Contortions, and this guy Rob Dupre. And believe it or not, Rob Dupre was the guitarist on stage with Iggy Pop that night that I saw Iggy Pop when I was 13.
It all came back. That's crazy.
Yeah, so I was just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." And then I'm like, "Oh God, I'm going to be with James Chance and Rob Dupre. Oh, I can talk to Rob about that show, see if if remembers the show or whatever." So I go and I do this session and it was crazy. And then we played CBGB's at Peter Crowley's Christmas party. It's in 99. Um, and then kind of nothing happened with that. At the time, Ego was start like I don't even think she had a name for the band at the time. And it was before Ego Sensation came into the forefront. But she had a band where she was playing guitar, I was playing bass, and someone we knew was playing drums. We would play her songs. And then her and I would switch her to bass, me to guitar, and we would do another band of my songs. So we did that for a while, tried to get shows around town, whatever. It's kind of crazy. And then basically 9/11 happened. And that was kind of a mind-boggling event, especially because I was walking to work at the time and I was on Spring and West Broadway, and I heard the first plane coming, and like I saw the first plane fly by, like low enough to where you could see people's heads in the windows, and I knew it was going to hit, and then I see it hit the Trade Center. So basically, White Hills was born out of that event. Okay. Now, okay, so it took a few years before there was like the actual White Hills was together, but that event was like a defining moment to me. Okay. Shortly after that, like I quit the job that I had then and just like went full hog into just music.
What was your
That's
mentality like? Were you just like, I want to be happy. I want to chase the thing I'm going for. What shifted?
it just, I was doing the same thing. It's like I came to New York to do one thing, but then I was getting caught up in trying to survive in order to, you know, be able to do this music, but not enough time, not enough energy was put into the music. Okay.
Interesting.
So, um, my dad died like within the year after 9/11, and when I was 13 years old, I emptied out a bank account and bought my first electric guitar with it, and my dad flipped out on me and chewed me the biggest asshole you could ever imagine, okay, for having done that
Wait. When was this? This was.
when I was 13.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm like jumping back and forth
I was like,
into
wait, you haven't had a guitar yet? Yeah, okay. Sorry, go on.
yeah, no, jumping back and forth in time because this plays into
Got
what
it.
story that isn't present. So my dad chews me out, tells me I don't understand like the value of money and saving and all this stuff, whatever. But my dad actually knew nothing about saving and living within his means or anything like that. So when he passed away, um, I took some of the inheritance I got from him and I bought myself the Les Paul I've always wanted. As a thank you for yelling at me, I see that as like one of the reasons also that's kind of like was a fire under my ass that's in some way to be like, I'll show you, kind of thing. I
Mhm.
can take this thing and I can actually, this thing will provide me a living. Um, so anyways, we jump up, I buy this guitar, and then I bought an early version of Pro Tools. And I just started to make what was the first White Hills album in my apartment on Avenue B.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when I finished it, I was all like, oh, this is something really special, you know? And I sent a copy to this British guy, Julian Cope. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Um, but he's very popular in England, goes back to late 70s post-punk scene. He had a band called the Teardrop Explodes, but then was a solo artist and is still a solo artist to this day. But he's someone that I've listened to since I was 15. And I was all like, when I finished it, I was all like, if anybody's gonna like this, Julian will like this. So I sent a CD to Julian. And then like a few months later, like my phone's ringing and I pick it up and he's all like, "Is this Dave?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "This is Julian Cope." And I was like, "Whoa." No idea. And he's all like, "I want to release your record." Because I started this new CDR label called Fuck Off and Die. And he goes, I want to put your record out. He's all like, "Are you into it?" It's like, "Yeah." And then he's all like, he goes, "I have an idea for it." He goes, "It involves me playing the Mellotron." He's all like, "Are you into me fucking with your album?" I said, "No, go ahead." Okay.
wait, what's this guy's name again? Sorry.
Julian Cope.
Julie, I know you
Yes.
said it nine
Yeah,
times, but like that now I gotta look this guy up.
yeah. He has this great website. It's headheritage.co.uk.
Okay.
All things Julian Cope, and he's got these forums up there and stuff. But anyway,
It's fuck off and die, just like also the funniest.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the logo for it was like a photo of Di and Charles. So it was spelled fuck off and die as in Diana. Okay.
Damn. All right.
Um,
British guy.
yeah,
Prop.
okay. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, yeah, of course. Then I don't hear from him for a few months. Then he calls me up again and he says, man, I've been trying really hard. He goes, but my mellotron and your music is not meshing with my cranium. That's exactly how he put it. Okay. And I was all like, okay. And he's all like, I have another idea. Will you let me run with it? I was all like, sure. And then he goes, in order for me to run with it, I need you to make a 26-minute extended version of the song No Game to Play. So I said, okay. So I added 20 minutes onto the song and then sent it over to him. And then, like a year later, it came out. And what he did with it is mind blowing, in my opinion, you know. And I think he made it a completely different album than what it was. But what's great about it is the album that he made stands on its own, and the one that is just my original version of what I sent to him stands on its own.
That's so cool. You got multiple versions with a
Yeah, yeah.
with a
And
metal stick.
it was great, and because of Julian taking interest in it, and he wrote about it on his website, Head Heritage. Then people started to email Head Heritage, and then they were forwarding emails to me. So I literally just started burning CDRs at home and hand gluing together covers and selling these CDRs to people.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah. And then that also gave me the push to really put a band together. So went through a bunch of different iterations of people and band sizes before we found this guy, Bob Belomo in Jersey. And then Bob was our drummer for a couple of years. Um, but like, yeah, the third show we ever did was opening up for Julian Cope in London in front of 2,000 people,
Jesus.
you know? So it was like a kaboom moment. And it happened at a time when there wasn't streaming, which was nice.
Which was nice. Yeah, I have to.
Yeah, it was nice. People thought about music in a completely different way. And, if me sending that to Julian at the time now, he could have written back to me and said, yeah, this is great. But like hell, if it would have ever got released by him and him spend the time to work on it, you know?
Yeah, because there's that level of involvement because he like wanted to see what he could do with it, if anything.
Mhm.
Um,
He thought I was there were and this is the other part of the 9/11 story that fits in with it, right? So basically that first album that I did was me working through in real time the issues and the things that I saw going wrong in the world. Okay. So like the call to war, like uh the way politicians, lied to try to convince people that it was Iraq, and then, just using it as an excuse to go after Saddam Hussein, which is who Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney wanted you know, ever since the 80s, and, you know, and not do anything to the people who actually were behind it. But anyway, so I was just really upset to watch all of those things unfold. And so the first song I wrote was the song No Game to Play. that only had one set of chanted lyrics that was that are, I don't believe a word you say. If not for greed, you'd have no game to play.
Yeah.
You know. Um, Yeah, so Julian like was all like finally someone else like, calling out some shots on what's going on in the world. He liked the political aspect of it. And he also felt that like I was the closest thing to Noi and late stage can that he had heard in decades. And he was all like, those were the things that turned me onto it.
Would you say White Hills is kind of like in a lot of ways it's like very it is meditative. It's like very
Yeah,
heavy
yeah,
and very
definitely.
kind of a meditation, and it's kind of a way to just get it out there. But I would say a lot of people do would classify you under kind of the stoner rock label. Hence, you guys played at Desert Fest. But I don't think that tells your whole story because you've also described yourself as krautrock and
Yeah, I mean, it's a billion genres that people, will say. I mean, at first it was like psychedelic or space rock,
yeah,
you know. Um, I think that the only thing that we have in common with stoner rock is that there are some songs that have extended solos. It's about it, you know.
yeah,
Um, but there's a greater depth to what we do. And I think the fact that people can hear little bits of whatever they're into in it is good, and they can put it wherever they want to within their scope of how they view music and what kind of music they like.
absolutely.
Yeah.
What? So what was So then you were just off to the races. Like this thing was working out. The band was working out at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was, the whole Julian Cope thing was huge, right? And so then after that, it was like of because Julian being British, it's like the UK took on to us. And then MySpace was also in its infancy at the time. And so we were getting emails on MySpace from British promoters wanting us to come over. And so we started to go over for like extended weekends. Flying was like so inexpensive, and we would just set it up where we wouldn't bring anything with us. So there was nothing for us to get caught with, and everything was just provided. Um, and so
Why was
that
flying cheap back then? Was it just in the
it
sense
was
that
cheap. It was just cheap. It was,
oh,
it's like one, there was a billion flights that you could get. Like right now, it's like it's the bare minimum of flights, and every flight is packed. I mean, I've flown back and forth to the UK on like a massive, massive Virgin, Boeing 777 or whatever with maybe 20 people on it.
yeah, it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, no, not at all. So it's just, I mean, airfare compared to now was inexpensive.
Gotcha.
So for three people to fly over, it was no big deal, you know?
And I would say, for a new band starting, it's important to just like instead of just keep on playing the same bars that are right next to your house, like going and touring. It shows people that like you want to do this.
Yeah, well, I didn't really even spend time once Julian like took a liking to it. I didn't spend a lot of time trying to play shows in New York City. I didn't like actively book. I've never actively booked any show in New York City. Everything that we've done has been part of a tour, or a booking agent was behind it, or we had been asked to do it. So we were getting asked to do a lot of stuff at that time. And we did a lot of cool shows in New York, but it was great because we didn't have to feel like we needed to play like two, three times a month.
Yeah.
And
That
then, yeah. And then in like 2007, um, this label in the UK, Rocket Recordings, contacted us. And uh, they were all like, we'd love to meet and talk with you about putting out a record. So I was like, cool. So after the show that we did in London, the next day we met up with this guy, Johnny and Chris, and they wanted to put out a vinyl, no, a CD, because vinyl really wasn't happening then. They wanted to do a CD of this self-released album that we put out called Glitter, Glamour, Atrocity. And I was all like, yeah, sure, no problem, you know. Um, and but also at that time we had uh already been writing what became the album Heads on Fire. Okay, it hadn't been recorded yet, and so when I was with them, I said to them like, "Hey, we also got like all this other, we got enough material for another album as well. So if you wanted to do something else, we'd have something else as well." And then they came back to us and said, "We'd actually like to just get it a record like that's never been done. Can you record this album?" So it's like, "Yeah, sure." So Bob, our drummer at the time, had a recording studio. And so and that's where we rehearsed. So we were basically set up to record all the time. And we just went in and recorded the album in like a month and then gave it to him and had two records out in 2007. And then also in 2007, we did a tour with a short-lived band called Dog and Tank, who's Tony Doggan Foster, who is been the lead guitarist in Spiritualized for like the last 20 years. Um, it was a solo band that he had. We met because he was playing guitar with Julian Cope at the time that we played with Julian. So we did this tour in the UK around this album that they did, our two bands together. Um, so that was like the first big tour. That was like being gone for an extended period of time. And it was also the first time we were out of the UK, you know, played this weird loft party in Brussels.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds awesome. I mean, I've heard great things about Brussels.
Oh, Brussels is great. Yeah.
So I mean, dude, I feel like I could talk to you forever, but I want to be respectful of your time, and I have some questions from the internet that I have to ask you.
All you got to do is just tell me to shut up.
No, I love this, and well, I guess yeah, actually before I get to these questions, first thing, well, you said something interesting where I'm like I moved to New York City this year, from California, and I do find myself, and I think there's lots of other people who are listening to this that they can empathize with this. I do find myself I'm doing audio work in theaters, which is similar to what I want to do, which is I want to do this podcast, I want to do bands and stuff like that. What I mean, something changed for you obviously, and you kind of mentioned that, but any advice for somebody out there that's just trying to do the thing that they actually want to do?
If you really want to do it, you will find the way to be able to do it and to be able to survive at
Yeah.
the same time. You know, it's like doing something like playing music is so risky, right? You know, um, and that's why bands don't last. That's why people's careers don't last long or whatever, you know? But it's like, it's what I want to do. And I haven't held a day job in longer than I can remember. So, you know, it's like, at in the beginning I bartended, but then once, and then it got to a point where like I was only home for 3 months of 1 year. And I was like, I don't need to bartend right now. I'm busy enough, I have enough money coming in. So you just figure out what you need to do in order to be able to do the thing you want to do. So you just do it.
There you go. It's like it makes so much sense. Absolutely. But it's always nice to hear somebody else just say it again.
You got to take a leap.
Yeah.
Okay, here, and actually, this plays into the theme of the new album Beyond This Fiction. Okay, so um Beyond This Fiction is like like it relates to like Joseph Campbell,
Mm.
the guy, the Power of Myth guy, and following your bliss, living, okay, so living, there's this Joseph Campbell quote that's like key to the theme of this album. And it's like, you must be willing to let go of the life you planned in order to have the life that is waiting for you. Okay.
I like that.
And yeah. And I think that that is so true. You need to carve your own path. And it's like you feel torn between two things. It's like, and what you want to do is down the center. You got to ride between the opposites and just go head first. Follow your bliss, you know?
That absolutely makes sense, and that's why he was a total G, and his books still resonate with so many people today.
Yeah.
What I mean, we should roll out this. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the album in just a second. But we had some questions from the internet when we told people we were going to be interviewing you. Lots of people were really stoked about it, which always makes us more stoked. But somebody asked, "What non-metal albums are you listening to lately?" Which I think is funny because I don't think you've mentioned that much metal in general today.
I've actually have never liked metal. I actually, the closest thing to metal that I own would be like Motorhead or Black Sabbath, but I don't consider either of those bands metal. Um,
Hard rock or punk gas.
yeah, yeah. What do I listen to? Lately I've been listening a lot to Penelope Houston.
Okay.
Okay. And she was the singer from this San Francisco punk band from the late 70s called The Avengers. But in the 90s, she made a series of solo records and tried to make it as like a female pop star, I guess you could say, kind of Americana-ish. I've actually kind of discovered a couple of those albums that I'd never heard before, and I really like them. So people probably wouldn't expect that that's what I'm listening to, but that's what I'm listening to right now.
Yeah. Um, Well, I'm definitely gonna check her out after this. And the other question that they had, which was kind of funny because you mentioned that Julian Cope asked you to write a 20-minute version of a song. Somebody asked if you're gonna be right or releasing a 30-minute version of Dropout.
Oh. Well, um, there will be some big news in regard to Dropout coming in 2024. That's all I will say at this time.
Great. Um, so yeah, let's roll out the red carpet for you. Let's talk about anything that you want to mention for this upcoming album. What are you gonna be doing touring wise? What can people expect from White Hills coming up?
Um, well, touring won't happen until later in the year, because the album won't come out until the fall, late summer, early fall. So touring will kind of kick up at that point and go into 2025. Um, so there's that. There's a couple other projects that I'm working on. One is what that nod announcement will be about. Um, and uh, I also, in the fall, um, finished a project where I did a series of 4 paintings and I wrote um, a 60-minute piece of music to go with these paintings. And each one of the 4 paintings will have one 15-minute section of the song. So no person will have the entire song except for myself. And I'll be selling these in the beginning of the year. It's the music with the painting. It'll come with a USB stick that has all the files digitally. It'll come as a CD release as well, but they only exist in editions of one. And the only person who will have the entire piece behind a painting is us for our archive. It won't exist digitally anywhere. No, nothing. One person. one section.
How'd you come up with that idea?
Um, it's it's art, you know? It's
Yeah, I
art.
don't know.
No, I mean it's art. That's what it is, and that's what it's meant to be. Even though it's like a piece and it's a song, it's like the pieces go specific, or the movements of the song are specific to the paintings. Okay. And so each section was composed to the idea of what the painting is.
Awesome.
Um,
Yeah, it's like a still life
yeah.
play. Yeah, or yeah,
And the idea is that there are people who do understand and cherish like music as art and what we do as art and something being a physical piece of art. And in this moment where everything's online, everything's everywhere. This will never be on a streaming platform. It will never get put up on Bandcamp as a song. It will never, never, as long as I'm alive, this piece will only exist with those five paintings.
okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
And
And that
that's the
that's
point of
next
it.
year.
Yeah. That'll be early next year. All of it's done. Um, yeah, I mean, that's like really it now. Of course, we'll in the meantime, we don't have any specific shows that we're all like, now this show is happening, you
Gotcha.
know. So, but that will pick up.
I have one last question for you, and I like to ask everybody some version of this, but I think you have alluded to an answer for this somewhat throughout the interview. But what do you do when maybe imposter syndrome kind of comes into your head, or you're not sure about yourself, or you're like, maybe I should just not do this, or you start comparing yourself? What kind of gets you through that?
Meditation. Those words don't come into my mind anymore. And, at any moment where there might be an inkling of second guessing when it comes to what I do with White Hills, really is gone because it doesn't serve you, doesn't serve anybody, you know? It's like, what good is it? Your mind is like an overactive thing, right? And you have control of it. And I highly suggest meditation for everybody on this planet. I think that we would not see a lot of the conflicts that we see worldwide or even locally or whatever if everybody meditated. And it's been a game changer for me. Yeah.
How long have you been doing it, just out of curiosity?
It's 6, almost 7 years now.
Gotcha.
And everyone's all like, I don't know, meditation, 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 whatever. This is all I got to say is get David Lynch's book, Catching the Big Fish. I
Okay.
bought that book and I read it in one sitting. It's a very easy book to read. I read it in one sitting and then I was instantly, I'm going to start meditating.
All
And
right.
from finishing that book every day since then.
Okay. Love it. Good. That's probably the most actionable advice that we've gotten for that answer. I love it.
It's the best drug, you know? I mean, I'm all for a good time. I'm all for a substance every now and again, but consistently, meditation is the best drug, you
All
know?
right.
You want a trip? You don't need to take LSD. You can trip. You can ride the astral plane. You can.
I
It
love
can,
that.
and people do it, and you can achieve it. And when you do that, when you feel it, it's a game changer.
It's like Dr. Dave. I've tried them all, but I highly recommend meditation.
No, meditation was a big game changer,
That's
huge game
awesome.
changer. I was at a very creative stuff, roadblock at the time, and it's changed everything. It's completely changed how I look at time, the concept of time. Time is so fast, and there is so much time, and there's more than enough time to do everything that you want to do. All you have to do is just do it.
Including meditation. You can always you can fit in 5-10 minutes there, here and there.
Yeah,
Love
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Hey, this has been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Anything you want to say to fans? Anybody listening out there? Any last words you got for us?
Yeah, just follow your bliss.
All right, it's just a
Ride between the opposites. Go beyond this fiction.
love that. Yeah, and everybody buy the album. Hopefully, it comes out on vinyl as well. Uh,
All formats, all streaming platforms.
it'll be everywhere.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
hopefully somebody buys a painting and I can go listen to 15 minutes of it somewhere in New York City. Well, thank you so much, Dave. This has been such a pleasure. This has been the Zen Perry Project, and can't thank you enough, and can't wait to see and hear the album. And yeah, best wishes to you, and happy holidays.
You, same to you.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you soon. All right.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Hey, for the love of God, please subscribe to our Patreon for like $1 a month. That would help out a lot. Podcasts are, in fact, really expensive to run. And I really enjoy doing this. Stuff going on for fun and stuff like this. Help me out. Also, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And really hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time.